Now we're going to switch countries a bit because I don't know if you've seen the news but we media and strategic partnered with Segev LLP, a Canadian awesome lawyer company, and today we have here Negin Alavi. And again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly.
Yeah, you did great.
All right, so everyone was used to the crypto catch-up by Segev LLP, but that was moved to our tech conference series. And now there's a new format, which is called Gaming Insights with Segev LLP. So this is the first episode. So I would like to invite Negin to start this session.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Zoltan and Gaming Americas for having me today. As I was introduced, my name is Negin, and before I begin my talk, if it's okay, I'd like to introduce my firm. So I'm a lawyer at Segev LLP. We're a business law firm headquartered in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. We also have satellite offices in the US and China. We offer a full range of legal services, everything from corporate securities, employment, real estate, and mergers and acquisitions, but we also do more specialized areas like crypto, blockchain, video game law, and of course, our specialty, online gambling law. I'm a technology lawyer, and I am part of the online gambling practice group and also the crypto and video game law practice groups. And so if you have any questions or would like to learn more about what we do, feel free to let us know, and we would love to assist you. My talk today is going to be about how technology is changing the ways that people gamble, but also the ways in which people view gambling. My talk is going to focus less about maybe the more mainstream areas, and I'll talk about the less talked about ways, but ways that are really gaining traction, especially in online communities, in video game communities. And maybe you'll wonder, oh, what does this have to do with me? I'm a B2B or a B2C organization, but I will discuss why this might be relevant, why this might be accessible to you. My main point is basically that as gambling becomes more accessible, more regulated, and more legitimized in different parts of the world, people are more and more valuing transparency and responsibility. That image of being a transparent, responsible company is really gaining traction. Negative perceptions for platforms and products that don't have those definitely grow. So perhaps places that you might not think of as hubs of gambling will be less likely to be regulated, or regulators are just starting to crack down on those places, exactly because of the reasons that these negative perceptions are flourishing. So for example, certain video games that are available to all ages, no mechanisms for self-exclusion or anything like that. And so, as I will discuss, technology affects and also creates new ways to gamble. So we have, land-based casinos and online casinos, but we also have video games, live streams, and those kinds of things, as well as crypto casinos that have been flourishing over recent years. So I'll start by talking about the origin of gambling mechanics and games, and I'll explain why this matters. It starts with things that are called gachapon machines. Have you ever been in the mall and you see those machines with little figurines in it? You put $1 or a coin, you turn the dial, and a figurine comes out. It'll be a randomized figurine, and there'll be a lot of pictures on the front of the machine, and you hope to get your favorite one. Those are gachapon machines. In the late 2000s, video games began incorporating these same types of functions, and they incorporated those gachapon mechanics in things called loot boxes. So they function very similarly to gachapon machines, where you would have a digital box with randomized item in it. You would pay perhaps real money for this loot box, and when you open it, a random item will come out, and players will hope to get their favorite item or a very useful item. And if you didn't get what you want, you have the opportunity to pay more and try again. That kind of sounds a little bit like gambling. Is it gambling though? So I'm a lawyer, and I love to talk about the elements of gambling in Canadian law. I think it'll be similar in different parts of the world, but as a Canadian gaming lawyer, I will talk about that. So there's 3 elements of gambling in Canadian law. You have to pay real money as a bet or a price of admission. There has to be a prize that you could win that would be usually greater than the price of admission. And there has to be an element of chance. So based on those elements, loot boxes do feel like a whole lot like gambling. But why does that matter? Because if gachapon mechanics and loot boxes and those kinds of things are gambling, then stakeholders will probably want to care. Regulators will want to care because they want to reduce gaming-related harms. You would want to have folks that are in the gambling industry want to be able to tap into that market. And basically, loot boxes on their face seem to fit right in. The vast majority of online communities, such as the gaming community and other communities, seem to agree. And loot boxes were basically vilified completely because of the lack of regulation, because of the lack of transparency. And a number of governmental authorities seem to agree, including in 2018, the Dutch Gaming Authority. And at the time, this was very big news. The Dutch Gaming Authority gave notice to a number of high-profile developers, and they basically said, loot boxes are gambling. People who maybe shouldn't be gambling, like children, are doing so, and this is their introduction in a way that we don't like. Please either remove it or stop selling in our jurisdiction. So that seems to be a really big deal, and it is. Why does that affect us? Because when popular opinion went against loot boxes, developers listened and governmental authorities listened. And loot boxes became much less popular in the last few years as a result. So that doesn't mean that games don't have these kinds of gachapon mechanics, but they do seem to be less prevalent, less overt. And the trend is, therefore, then when people in these communities see what they perceive to be gambling, they're very quick to say things like, oh, gambling belongs in regulated spaces. It'll belong in a casino. It'll belong in spaces that have licenses, perhaps. And the fact that loot boxes have lost popularity and are basically old news in a lot of these spaces is telling, because technology, first of all, changed the way we gamble because it's digital, and then changed how we perceive gambling. And so if this is the first introduction that a person who, maybe as a younger person, played video games, got introduced to gambling, if this is how they start their sort of gambling career, then we should be able to think about that critically. And we should think about how communities at large will perceive our products and our brands as a result. So that's the first takeaway of technology is, in video games, loot boxes. But there's more. Technology has done all kinds of interesting things, including mobile gambling. So, maybe a number of operators will think of online gambling sites, perhaps an extension of a land-based casino brand. And that's definitely true. Technology has allowed for mobile gambling sites, poker sites, perhaps. And it also allows for crypto casinos. A crypto casino is exactly how it sounds. It's a casino that will take bets in cryptocurrency instead of, or in addition to, fiat currency. And when folks encounter online gambling sites, including crypto casinos, as their first experience, it might be unusual for some to consider, but that will be sort of the home base. And land-based casinos will feel like an extension of the mobile site and not the other way around. So usually people will think, oh, the land-based casino is the place you go, and if you can't make it or you don't want to, you could go online. For this, it's the reverse. It would be like the land-based version is the extension of the place that is familiar to you. Especially folks who prefer or exclusively play at crypto casinos, online is their casino. And so the perception, again, has changed. The way they gamble, yes, has changed, but the perception, perhaps equally as important, has also changed. And gambling online goes way beyond online casinos and poker sites because technology has brought yet other gambling opportunities, which are casino streaming and online sweepstakes streamers. So what's streaming? First of all, streaming is similar to what we're doing right now. A lot of folks are streaming this. When it comes to casino streamers, You will watch a person, play a casino site. You will watch someone play sweepstakes, and the audience gets to experience that excitement. The audience gets to experience the feeling of going on that ride, but from an audience's perspective. Casino and online sweepstakes streamers are increasingly popular, and in true fashion, online streaming communities then, which a lot of which overlaps with online gaming communities, have concerns. This shift in perspective, as they start to question, are all ages allowed to watch these streams? Are vulnerable populations allowed to watch these streams? That began to gain traction. And so as this backlash grew, then, for example, Twitch, very popular streaming platform, had a number of very prominent streamers, on that platform begin to organize a strike, begin to be vocal about Twitch needing to either ban or regulate or, restrict in some way, not regulate, restrict in some way gambling streams. Same with YouTube. A lot of folks began to question whether it was okay for YouTube to have what they perceived as relaxed rules. And due to this kind of public perception, Twitch and YouTube both updated their gambling and gaming rules and policies. That matters because if folks have a negative image of gambling that isn't, responsible, that isn't transparent, or if they feel like gambling is somehow insidious, even if it's not, even if, obviously many people enjoy it responsibly, that's something to take into consideration as you look at future trends. And so traditional media is still trying to figure out how to treat gambling content as gambling because, as it becomes more regulated and legitimized, especially in North America, it's harder to figure out what people will be okay with. Public perception, sometimes it feels like it turns on a dime. It obviously doesn't. There's different things that spiral. It's not immediate, but what feels over the line in these communities can be hard to figure out, especially for folks who want to create a product that is, responsible and transparent, but also appealing, fun, and accessible. And so when rule makers, especially like at Twitch and at YouTube, are struggling to make up rules in response to that, or video game developers are trying to make sure that the gaming authorities around the world don't give them enormous fines, it's really challenging for them to figure that out. And so being mindful of this is the first step. Being mindful of the way these communities, even if they're not directly accessing, online casinos or land-based casinos or anything like that, they still influence the way folks that do access this entertainment perceive that entertainment. And so in conclusion, how should we think about technology? How should we think about the different ways that gambling has popped up through technology, and how do people view gambling as a result? We should think about gambling being perhaps germinated in unexpected places, but also we should think about how one area affects the other area. We want to make sure that we understand the way trends are falling and the way trends are leading to perhaps places that we might not have expected. And so, yeah, technology is really interesting in a lot of different ways. And I think that the most important takeaway, I hope, from this talk is to question how technology can serve you instead of technology perhaps not serving you. That's it. Thank you. Thank you for your time. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask.
So much. Are there any questions from the audience? I don't see any on YouTube either. So thank you so much. It has been great. It was a great catch up on things. You're very welcome. Hope to see you again at our next session. And to all our audience, thank you so much for joining us. To all the thousands of viewers on YouTube, thank you so much for hanging around. We will be back again in April on the 27th, as I mentioned earlier. And until then, take good care and see you all soon. Bye.